Okay, I'm back. I'm back to talk about the courts. But before I do, right now from the get go, I just want to say do encourage each and every one of you that if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you're going to be kept up to date with all what I have to say. So let me get started right now about about the courts. It's always a big contentious issue when it comes to presidential elections. Nothing new under the sun. All my life, it's always been, the Democrats and the Republicans fearful of what the opposing party will do in terms of the Supreme Court. I have always been worried. That's always been one of my biggest worries as far as civil liberties and various other issues concerned. And both sides look at the courts as something as a power grab. Now, I think it's disingenuous when Republicans will tell you that they care about strict constructionism and keeping the courts the way that our founding fathers meant it to be. Hey, spare me the hubbub. Spare me the hubbub. When they sit there and accuse Democrats of trying to create an activist court, that's exactly what many Republicans, activists, have wanted themselves. It's just they want an activist court. They just want an activist in their ideological direction. And Democrats also want the courts ideologically in their direction. And it happens. Now, thing about the courts is that no matter who appoints whatever appointees, yes, usually a president will appoint a few ideological diehards who are partisan, but probably most of the court justices maintain a sense of independence and don't want to appear partisan and try to interpret the law to to a way where it would be in guidelines of the U.S. Constitution. Um, it's not perfect, but that's the situation everybody is in. So let me just start off by saying that we went through 4 years of President Donald Trump. Um, as a civil libertarian on social issues, I'm a civil libertarian, and some of the court appointees of Donald Trump concern me a great deal. Um, when you have the right wing cheering Trump on, we're talking about the political evangelicals, what otherwise known as the Christian right, big business. People. Uh, Pretty much a big chunk of the Republican base. They had plenty to be happy about with Trump's appointment to the U.S. Supreme Court and the lower courts. It's been said that what Trump did to the courts will affect the federal court system for decades. So even if someone like Bernie Sanders would have beaten Donald Trump last year for president, um, and there would have been a lot of it would have been a if the Democratic Party would have discovered how correct Bernie Sanders is on everything and adopt most of his ideas, it'll get stopped in the courts. And that's the reality of the situation. So the big question for leftists, and I guess to an extent corporate Democrats, because there is a little bit of overlap, they do agree on is in their vested interest to to be in charge of the courts and to steer the country a certain way. And as I said, Republicans do the same thing too. They want the courts to steer toward their ideological direction. And Trump did pack the U.S. Supreme Court and the lower courts, no doubt about it. And what are the repercussions from this? the repercussions is what that this could affect things like labor rights. I'm a union guy. It's my first love when it comes to the American economy. Unions is the guidepost. It is the thing that makes the middle class, and it's been successful that even people in non-union jobs became middle class because of the influence of the unions. And the unions are at the weakest they have ever been in known memory in the United States. Um, a Supreme Court needs to be in the direction I would like for it to be in, for the unions to go and to regain the political strength that they have had zapped away from them for almost a half a century. Well, almost the last 45 years, certainly since the days of Reagan, when the union started to majorly decline. Overall, economic regulations, and sometimes some, the, you'll have people that can just buy their influence in there to get rid of regulations that they said is unconstitutional, what have you. And as I said, um, I am nervous about corporate interests getting themselves too much power. Issues dealing with free speech. Now, I want to add a caveat to the free speech one, because the court's actually been pretty good, no matter which direction, a liberal direction, a conservative direction. The court's been, I would give, r- range of A, passing grade, to F, failing grade. I'd give the Supreme Court maybe a lower tier B plus when it comes to bordering on bordering on B minus, but on the bottom part of B plus. I would say they have been okay on issues of free speech, but still, I'm nervous about what could happen with various issues that are at stake today. So it is still always a concern of mine. And civil liberties of individual Americans. That's another area that we have to worry about. And there are issues dealing with criminal justice. I mean, just a whole lot of questions that remains uncertain. Well, the big solution right now I'm hearing is pack the courts. Joe Biden is president. You have a technical, even though it's a razor thin majority, a technical majority in the U.S. House, and and a majority, although very slim, in the U.S. House. So the thought of the day by many progressives is, we've been having trouble with a right leaning Supreme Court for decades. I mean, when um, Nixon, it started with Nixon, but at least most of those people that Nixon appointed were normal, regular center right people that they eventually became the liberal wing of the Supreme Court. That's how far to the right this country has gone. And then during the days of Reagan and George Bush Sr. did a lot to reverse the the trend this country was in. So the legacy that was the Earl Warren Court pretty much disappeared. Um, Earl Warren's Court, Warren Burger's Court, when it became the Rehnquist Court, the Supreme Court shifted the country further right. Bill Clinton didn't appoint that many people in the court, but it kind of neutralized for a while. And then George W. Bush came in and put in several people in the courts. Then it neutralized for a little while under Obama. But when Anthony Scalia died, I believe it was in 2015, Mitch McConnell did everything he could to go and stop another Supreme Court justice by a Democratic president from taking place. But as soon as Ruth Bader Ginsburg died under Trump, Mitch McConnell wanted to rush in another court justice. And so don't tell me that the Republicans, and when I'm sitting there saying criticizing Republicans, don't want to act like I'm defending Democrats, like I'm a partisan Democrat. I feel kind of dirty doing that. But when it comes to courts, the Republicans are, in my opinion, the worst ones. And Mitch McConnell, being the just being the asshole he is, I'm Mitch McConnell. I'm an asshole. He went and took a centrist piece of nothing like Merrick Garland and made sure that there was no appointment hearing or anything like that. And while Trump was president, in control of the Senate, which Mitch McConnell, he just allowed those judges in there, allowed those judges to come on through. And now we're in a situation where this country won't be able to move forward. So my impulse is be combative. Go ahead, pack the courts. It's been done since the beginning of this country. We originally had 9 justices when America was founded. Then it became 11 justices, 13, it just, so anyway, we need to go and do what we can, and I need to reverse that. We eventually came in with 9. We eventually had 9 justices. It wasn't originally 9 justices initially. FDR wanted to, I don't know, expand it to 12, 15 judges or something like that, 24 judges. It was something ridiculous like that in the 1930s because the Supreme Court were throwing monkey wrenches at his New Deal proposals. And there was an attempt to try to expand the courts, and it did not happen. And I'm kind of on the defense of whether in the 1930s I would have said, looking back, I would have probably preferred for the courts to be expanded. I'm not so sure I'm for packing the courts today, and I'm going to tell you why. Um, thing about it is, it will look like it will look like a power grab, and I guess it might as well probably be considered that. I mean, I don't like the Republicans, but I can see where it will look like a power grab. But the thing about it, from my perspective, with the advantage that the Republicans have had over the years with Supreme Court justice, since appointing them being appointed in there, it's been a power grab in the other direction. So my impulse is to be combative and say, yeah, go ahead, pack the courts. Yeah, fuck those Republicans, pack the courts. But there could be a potential price to pay for that. And that power grab, or what looks like a power grab, could end up with the country voting Republican and the Republicans gaining control of the House and the Senate. Don't like the Democrats, but certainly I certainly don't like the Republicans even more. So what if the courts expand and we pack the courts? The Democrats decided to pack the courts. Well, look at it this way: Joe Biden runs for re-election in 2024 and loses, or Joe Biden steps down and we have President Kamala Harris and she runs for election and she loses, and either Joe Biden or Kamala Harris will lose to potentially someone like Tom Cotton of Arkansas or Ted Cruz of Texas. And both Tom Cotton and Ted Cruz are both to the right of Donald Trump. Um, the very idea of court appointees by a President Ted Cruz or a President Tom Cotton scares the hell out of me. And if you're a progressive, it should scare the hell out of you. If you're a corporate Democrat, it should scare the hell out of you. If you're a moderate Republican, a President Tom Cotton or President Ted Cruz should even scare the hell out of you, some of y'all. So I am a little nervous about the idea of packing the courts. There's more. Another alternative is rotating court justices around. Bernie Sanders mentioned possibility of rotating court judges around last year when interviewed during the primaries. It sounds at first like it might be an okay idea, but the problem is that it would be bureaucratic, it would be messy, and I think it will create more political instability than packing the courts, believe it or not. So I'm not particularly keen on rotating judges either. And then there's another alternative, term limits. Term limits of 10 years. You get appointed to the Supreme Court or some of the lower courts. You go and serve as a judge in that court seat for 10 years. And after 10 years, you retire from the courts. You have nothing to do with the courts by law. That is, it means that if you belong to some of the lower courts, after 10 years, you can't be appointed to the Supreme Court. It'll be a conflict of interest, in my opinion. I think you need to keep everything fresh to, in my judgment, to make the courts less politicized. Ideally, I want the Supreme Court and the lower courts in our federal government to go in a social democratic direction. If I had it my way, that's the way we would go. But I actually still favor our government being in a situation where it's not going to be ideological, but a function of government without any politicizing. And so that's more important to me. So I would like to see less corruption and less partisanship in our court system. You won't be able to get rid of it, but I think that, in my judgment, term limits would actually be something that both sides could roughly get behind. 10-year term limit, and after you step down from the lower courts or the Supreme Court, once you step down, that is it. You do not go back into the courts in any way, shape, or form. And I actually still favor that for the U.S. House and U.S. Representatives, U.S. Senate and U.S. House of Representatives. Let's have term limits for them too. You have term limits for the presidents. You should have it for the legislative branch of government. You should have it for the judiciary. Your three major branches of government should have term limits: the executive, the legislative, and the judicial branches of government. And I just think that will be a way to kind of clean government up. So, of all the options of what to do about the courts, I think that maybe the best thing to do is to do term limits for our courts, because I don't want a power grab. I don't want anything that's going to be messy and bureaucratic. I want something that's going to be clean, and I just think that the institution of democracy, our representative democracy, a free society can be maintained if you have a less politicized court and you have a 10-year term limits. I think that in other countries, I heard, and I'm not sure, but I think in other countries they have term limits for their judges. We should do the same here in the United States. If you like what you heard, press like and comment. If you disagree, well, comment anyway. We'll have a conversation. Feel free to share the content on this channel. As a First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you to utilize the platform and to express yourselves with that platform because we're the muckrakers of our time. Feel free also to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you're kept up to date. And until next time, I am American Social Democracy. Peace. Class struggle yesterday, class struggle today, class struggle tomorrow, until we have full economic and social justice for all.